Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another tropical update by Agent of the Forecast. And we have a lot to talk about. We've had a lot of big updates, believe it or not. Here, Grace and Henry are both likely to become hurricanes. Henry's going to bring in some pretty big and gusty winds for portions of Bermuda, as well Grace may become a hurricane and impact portions of the Yucatan Peninsula and possibly even re-strengthen into a hurricane Category 1 and affect portions of the Bay of Campeche. So definitely watching out for a lot of impacts here. Grace is now basically over water. It was just over Jamaica, and I'll show you guys why it is over water at this point. And Henry as well is already a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm, likely to become a hurricane extremely soon here. So we have a lot to talk about. But before we get in the video, I would recommend you guys smash that subscribe button as well as smash that like button and as well the bell icon notification. But without further ado, let's get in the video. So here's a look at the latest advisory here by the National Hurricane Center. And as you can see there, we have Henry as a tropical storm. This is the 8 p.m. advisory. This is the 8 p.m. advisory just came out. So we do have Tropical Storm Grace at 1,003 millibars in 50 miles an hour. And it was moving west now at 15 miles an hour. So it's basically kind of going due west, a little bit more west-northwest. As well, Henry is now a 65 monarch tropical storm. It has minimal central pressure as low as 997 millibars. That is obviously a lot lower than, I mean, this storm has really, Henry just got here so quickly. It went from an invest to a 90-90 super quickly, and then a tropical depression, and it's zooming past tropical storm status and likely to become a hurricane. And obviously, Fred is now only a 25 minor tropical depression here, and this is the last advisory we will have on Fred. Basically, this is the last one. Actually, no, this one was actually issued by the Weather Prediction Center. The last one, I believe, was Advisory 32 or Advisory 31. So let's get a look at actually the Grace discussion here to get an idea how strong the National Hurricane Center wants this to get. Obviously, we have some pretty good conducive conditions, and I forgot to mention, we now have hurricane warnings here for Tropical Storm Grace, soon to be Hurricane Grace. So we do have hurricane warnings for portions there of the Yucatan Peninsula. So there we have a peak of 85 miles an hour. So the peak has continued to really go up here. It was originally 80 and now it is now 85. So we're continuing to see a strengthening trend here for portions of obviously Grace in the future. We have some really deep ocean heat content, basically looking at a upper scale anticyclone, basically, which is gonna really help, really, I guess, protect the storm from the vertical shears. That's as well gonna be a big factor into how we'll get its act together. And look, it gets 85 twice, 85 in 36 hours. So basically, we're talking about a hurricane possibly within the next 24 hours or so. 85 once again in 72 hours. So this thing's gonna really gain strength quickly. It actually goes from 50 to 70 miles an hour in just 12 hours. So we're talking possibly rapid intensification. It goes 30 miles an hour strength within 18 hours, and in 48 hours it actually goes down a little bit because of that weakening trend, but it goes basically 35 miles an hour. Let's see here, from now to 36 hours. So we are talking about a very close rapid intensification. It's basically just going to be under it, because 24 hours from now it'll be 80, and it's actually 50 right now, so it'll only be 30 miles an hour. I believe we need 35. So this thing is going to be very close to rapid intensification, and it cannot be ruled out of the possibility here. Let's now obviously get a look at the actual cone wash. We'll look at that a little bit later. Let's get a look here at Henry, and Henry as well is supposed to become a hurricane rather soon here by Friday, so we could possibly see two hurricanes around that weekend time frame. So the discussion for Henry, though, Henry as well is a very interesting storm here as well. We see the ridge and all that, but the peak for Henry now has gone up and looking at 80 miles an hour. So we're looking at some decent, moderate, or obviously only Grace would be kind of more of a moderate Category 1, but as well Henry is really increasing in the strength peak up to now already 80 miles an hour. So obviously we kind of have a ridge right there, which is going to help push it west as it strengthens. And that's going to help it allow it to continue to have more of a conducive environment and not getting killed by that ridge just north east of Bermuda. But these both storms are really looking really good at this point. But let's now go ahead and get a look here at the IR forecast. So here's a look here at the IR forecast on obviously looking at Grace, and actually the low pressure is no longer actually over or not Puerto Rico, sorry, over Jamaica, and I'm actually going to show you why it is probably most likely not over Jamaica at this point, the actual surface low, the actual low circulation, basically. And here's a look at the actual convection forecast. You see a big area there. We're kind of be seeing a convection burst right there. A few hot towers were actually kind of really bursting there south of Jamaica. And it looks like now this low pressure is actually being reported here, or not reported itself, but on recon, which is going in at the moment as we speak. It looks like the surface low is actually going to be just outside of Jamaica on the waters just to the west. So there is a chance there is no longer over water, but we see a lot. I mean, really seeing some overall widespread convection as well as some widespread banding here. This thing's a beautiful storm here. Obviously, it looked really ugly at some point in its life when it was a tropical depression here. But this thing is just an absolute beauty. We're still seeing some more convection popping up now south of portions of Jamaica here. So going to keep a very close eye on whether we're going to be seeing a new area of low circulation. Let's not get a look here at the actual satellite imagery though on Grace here, and you can kind of see this thing's looking really good. See that latest convection burst? It is just an absolute beauty here. I mean, look at that convection burst right there, basically just over Jamaica. It's just this thing's an absolute beauty. It's a really good looking storm here. Definitely worth getting to a high end tropical storm very soon. You kind of see those cumulus clouds really kind of stretching out, and that's kind of showing you that we are seeing that kind of upper level anticyclone basically. So that ULAC is basically what we're going to be seeing here noticeably, which will help decrease the amount of shear effect from the actual TUT, which is to the northwest, but right, or northeast, sorry. So there you kind of see the cumulus clouds kind of stretching there, and you can see that it is a ULAC because you're kind of seeing those diverging clockwise spin. You kind of see that clockwise spin, that diverging cumulus. So that's obviously what you see in a ULAC. This is just an absolute beauty here. There's most likely a chance that this low pressure is just outside, just south of Jamaica. But just see that it's an absolute beauty. I mean, there's a really good banding. I think it's going to get a lot better and possibly, who knows, develop an eye as it aims for a portion of the Yucatan Peninsula. It has all of this before it gets to over that land. And obviously, there's really warm ocean heat content and very warm SSTs and overall pretty good conditions. So this is going to be a very interesting pathway as it goes towards Yucatan. It's definitely going to get a lot better. So here's a look here at the actual Tropical Storm Grace 5 o'clock advisory cone. The reason why I'm looking at 5 o'clock when the 8 o'clock was popped up there is because the 8 o'clock cone has not come out yet. But there you see those hurricane warnings all the way from areas from Cancun all the way down from the crest there of much of that kind of coastal region there, Yucatan Peninsula. So we have hello, friends, and we have not have hurricane warnings yet whatsoever in the North Atlantic, and we finally have our first hurricane warnings. Even some tropical storm warnings once again issued for a portion of Cuba because this wind field's really expanding over portions of Jamaica. Here you kind of see that low pressure is right on the very edge of Jamaica there. And obviously I'm about to show you after this, actually I think I'm about to show you very soon here, the actual what recon has so far and what they're picking up on and where the actual low pressure most likely is. So you can kind of see at 5 o'clock it was kind of on the very edge of Jamaica. So obviously now it's 3 hours later. It's most likely going to be on the waters, and I will show you that later. As well, we do have some hurricane watches issued for those. I'm not actually familiar with those islands between Cuba and Jamaica, but we do have some hurricane watches there in that general region south of Cuba, kind of just near the actual track itself there. So it's going to be tropical storm all the way to the point till we get towards the next few hours or so. I think it said hurricane in like 36 and 20, I think 24 or so tropical storm. However, I think at this point this could easily become a tropical or a hurricane within 24 hours or so based on how it's looking and based on the conditions in the future. So we expect to become a hurricane there. And then 85, making landfall at the 85 mile an hour category 1 there just south of Cancun, as well as tropical storm warnings issued and expanding further out and south and north of those hurricane warnings there, because that's where we'll be seeing that expansive wind field of tropical storm winds, while in those reds we'll be seeing the better chance for those sustained hurricane winds, obviously sustained. But however, in the tropical storm warnings, we could definitely see some hurricane wind gusts for sure. Then it weakens back to a tropical storm considering the terrain and overall geography. And then it becomes back a hurricane and back to 85 miles an hour in the very warm and favorable Bay of Campeche, and then makes landfall there. Very similar to what the GFS is showing you, actually. The GFS may very well verify, although the GFS kind of wanted 971 millibars and 970 969 and all that. they are going to get the overall location correct because they do kind of have it really dipping down towards Mexico very quickly here. So definitely very interesting here. But the reason why we're kind of seeing, I guess, this whole upward trend is because obviously Grace really avoided a ton of land, and it's kind of being remaining going due west here, which we did not expect at all because obviously a few models were hinting kind of maybe strengthening and actually kind of pulling a little bit northwest because of that trough, and obviously it's strengthening a little bit more. However, now it's just going kind of due west as it went back to a trough depression and got steered by the trade winds, and that's why I completely avoided even Hispaniola. So that's why this thing was able to remain and have a chance to even form like this again. Actually, at this point, models were hinting it not even becoming a tropical storm until the Bay of Campeche because of that whole weakening back to a tropical depression. But there you see the decent wind field here. It's basically maybe like maybe 1.5 the size of Jamaica. There you see as well those tropical storm watches as well even near the Havana region. So overall, a lot of the Western Caribbean is within a lot of that alerts here, and there you see those hurricane warnings. Here's a look at the actual intensity guidance here as of 18Z. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly when 0Z comes out here. I think 0Z should come out rather soon. But there you see, looking at let's look at M here of strengthening, because obviously it really strengthened in the Western Caribbean and weakens back because of the Yucatan, and then goes back in the Bay of Campeche and then goes back after landfall. So it looks like these malls are McLovin it. All right, that was pretty cringy. I apologize. All right, you guys never heard that, but there you see them all. Malls actually want to have it getting even near Category 2 strength. Actually, a few, I think 3 or 4, even 5, are getting it to a Category 2 strength. I'm not going to rule out the possibility of a Category 2, especially if it is 85, maybe even 90 for Yucatan, and then it goes back in the very warm Bay of Campeche. I'm not going to rule out the possibility for a Category 2, because obviously at this point you only need 100 really for Category 2, so I wouldn't rule out the possibility. However, is it super duper likely, or am I depending on it? I not necessarily. However, again, it still cannot be ruled out the possibility. But there you see it getting it as maybe as high as maybe even 85 knots. So really getting close to tropical storm, Category 2 strength. Then it goes back to tropical storm. Even a few staying at a very weak Category 1, but the majority, like 99%, want to have it back to a tropical storm and then back again, strengthening as a Category 1 within the next 3 days. And here's a look here at the recons to show you guys that that Grace is most likely over water once again. So we actually have an idea that the low level circulation is currently over just off Jamaica. So it looks like the low level circulation there at 1,002 millibars is where this circulation, where this actual surface low is at the moment. So it's most likely going to be back over water very, very soon. Or it's most likely already over water at this point right now. And hopefully the National Hurricane Center can verify this so we can get an idea whether it's going to start going on the rampage strengthening trend or not. So obviously keeping a very close eye on this, like I did say, rapid intensification cannot be ruled out the possibility. But there's that good strengthening within convection there. Those really nice hot towers with that really nice cold convection tops looking really good there. Actually, we actually saw some pretty good winds here up to 45 knots there in flight levels. To actually get an idea here on what they actually have on the actual information here. So let's actually see there they have 1,000, or actually they had 1,000 millibars here. At some point they had 1,002 millibars. I know I had it open here, but they actually had 1,002 millibars at the surface here. But as they're going pretty far south, the pressure is going to really increase here. But yeah, they had 1,002 millibars, obviously, which I was going to show you guys. I was actually going to look at the actual information on the winds here. So flight level has picked up already around 40 knots or so, and it's not even in the main area here, and it's not even the northeast quadrant. I believe the northeast quadrant for right now, Grace, based on ASCAT, was the strongest, and you can just go overall look back at the overall northeast quadrant. You can kind of see the more the kind of the winds are kind of sending more to the north and northeast. I mean, that's interesting, but there is, looking at the actual surface winds we're kind of having here, it could be very well contaminated because of the rain rate. However, we are getting some numbers here up to around 40 knots there of surface winds. So I want to keep a close eye on recon, and I'll update you guys it later on. But there they have 1,005 millibars at this point. So here's look at actually Henri, and Henri's looking pretty bad. If you look at it on the actual convection forecast, you kind of think that it's obviously going to be a lot bigger, considering it's a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm and about to basically be a hurricane extremely soon here. You think it'd be a lot bigger, a lot larger, but actually this thing does have It looks like it's trying to again. Basically, it looks like it's going through a journal minimum actually. So it looks like it's losing a ton of convection and going through a journal minimum. Actually, the convection part could very well be there is a little bit of shear here within this vicinity of the storm here. So that could be a reason why some shear is kind of really falling apart and diminishing a little bit. Or it could very well just be a journal minimum. I think it's more going to be more of a journal minimum because right now shear is not too crazy at all. It's actually not that bad at all whatsoever, and really won't cause such a rapid convection death, I guess you say. But actually, this thing actually looks like a supercell. For those who know the typical supercell, this is the kind of where you be seeing that couplet right there, and then you kind of see the FFD right here. FFD. I mean, I'm not sure why I'm doing a whole supercell lesson. Then you see the RFD kind of going like. I mean, this is just a really good supercell structure. No, I'm not sure why I'm pointing that out, but that's a really good supercell structure right there. Even though it's not a supercell, obviously. But yeah, overall, you can kind of see this is where the actual low level circulation is kind of associated within this general region here. We see a lot of that nice amount of inflow and outflow. Overall, you can as well see there could be an upper level cyclone here. You can kind of see those really nice anvil clouds, or as well. Sorry, not anvil. You kind of see those nice cumulus clouds really kind of popping out just from the north side, though not really from the south side. So I wouldn't really necessarily call it a ULAC yet. I think it's definitely getting a really good anti-cyclonic low there in the upper and mid levels, kind of developing that general region here, really decreasing the threat or the, I guess, the consequence of that shear that's in the general region. But here's like the actual storm here on visible, and it looks obviously a lot better. You can kind of just see those really not. Oh my god, look at these bandings here. I mean, these bandings that are really emerging here are just absolutely beautiful. We're seeing some really good banding lately in the past few hours. I mean, earlier, it was just a convection burst. Look at that. It was just convection burst. It was just like a big blob of convection. And now it's actually getting somewhat some structure here, actually. Let's go back to pink here. You guys can get an idea. It's getting some really good structure, some really good overall banding. You can kind of see some really strong inflow within this cyclonic flow, a nice kind of clockwise flow. And that's where the low pressure is right here within a lot of that convection there. But overall, it's kind of really looking really good. A lot of that kind of western quadrant there isn't the best looking. It doesn't have like the best wind, or obviously the best. It's not the best quadrant, but you can kind of see it's definitely getting there. It's actually getting a lot of structure at this moment. And before we actually jump in with not Grace, sorry, with Henri. Sorry, I forgot all the names here. Wow, I'm losing track of all the names. Before we continue back with Henri, actually, we have the 8 p.m. advisory here for Grace, and you can see Grace is officially over water here. You can kind of see the actual white dots presenting the actual center. And at the center, it's basically over water as well. Here's look at the track. So the track as well showing the low pressures off water, and we still actually have again a forecasted hurricane. The hurricane warnings remain, and actually I will get the actual discussion here in just within a second. So here's now a look here at the actual 8 p.m. advisory, and there is at now a 60 miles an hour, and the pressure has gone down 1,002 millibars, and that just showed you guys that 1,002 millibars there on recon. So let's now get a look at the actual discussion on what the actual peak is. I wonder if it's going to be 85, and it is still 85. Yes, still 85 mile an hour peak there. And let's now go back for Henri. Let's see what a Henri has to offer, ladies and gentlemen. Still 65. So basically, it looks like that boy Grace, or that girl Grace, sorry, not boy, that girl Grace is really catching up with Henri, even though Henri really had a massive, I mean, a huge start here. And Grace kind of had a really early start. But here's now a look here at the actual peak here for Henri, and it remains at 80 miles an hour. So not really any new peaks at all within this. But let's now go back going into Henri. So here's now a look here at the latest 8 p.m. advisory. So there you see, it looks like obviously we're going to be seeing Tropical Storm Henri for quite a while here. Until basically Friday, which is going to be what, like another 3 days? Yeah, 3 days till Friday afternoon. And then obviously actually that's Friday morning, sorry. So it's actually going to be less than 3 days. It's going to be kind of closer towards around 2-ish days, 2.5 days. Then it becomes a hurricane within 72 hours, and they're going to be seeing an out-to-sea hurricane. So it shouldn't be a threat, not even for Bermuda. However, because where the wind is right now, we do have tropical storm watches for tropical storm wind gusts. Here's the latest look here at the 18Z tropical storm Henri. Intended guys, we have a big increase here with a few models getting as high as a major hurricane, a few category 2, but the majority want to have it at either a high-end category 1 or a low-end category 1 or a high-end tropical storm. Obviously, a big reason for why we were watching out for maybe a potential rapid intensification for Grace is because of the very deep ocean heat content. We're basically seeing 80-degree waters going down further than 150 meters here, and that's going to be widespread all the way from Jamaica. Basically, the whole path. This is basically highlighting the whole path. Let me actually zoom in all the way here. And look, this is where, obviously, let's go back here and get my X. This is where it basically is right now. That's where Grace is. I mean, I don't want to do it too close over Jamaica because you want to see the X. But there's the X, and it's going all the way up here. It's going to go through extremely deep ocean heat content for its whole exact, basically, life over water. It's going to be going exactly through all of that juiciness and all of that really, really warm waters. And that's exactly why Grace could easily become 85, maybe even 90 miles an hour before hitting Yucatan. So I think it's definitely extremely interesting what is going on here. I mean, very, very, very good conditions overall, not just with obviously the SSTs and with the ULAC, and obviously just overall everything's really good for Grace, and it's definitely very interesting. Let's go look at the 18Z GFS, and there you see the big triangle storms all the way from Tennessee back here down to the East Hispaniola and Jamaica, basically. So here's a look at the 18Z. GFS has it at 999 millibars for the next 6 hours, which is very, very reasonable considering it's 1,010 or 1,002. Sorry, right now they actually have Henri a millibar behind, so they really have Grace getting its act together extremely quickly. I mean, extremely quickly. Let's not get the next 24 hours or so. Then they have here 1,000, or actually, I think that's 900 and no, 1,003 millibars there for Henri. So Henri's not going to continue to really big streak up, strengthening quickly. That'll actually be moved on to Grace, and Grace will now get to 998 millibars. Sorry, that's 988 millibars, 982 within 30 hours, and then making landfall there for Yucatan, basically at 980 millibars, while Henri remains at only 1,004 millibars. And then Henri finally gets act together here with the next 72 hours. That's exactly where we're watching out for the actual landfall. So there you see that really strong ridge actually right here. And that's going to push this storm really westward actually. And that's going to be really steering this storm kind of really quickly to the north like that. And it's exactly why we're seeing such a really weird track. So it's only getting pushed west like that because of the ridge, but it's only getting pushed north because of that, because of the ridge here. So that's exactly what is going to happen. It's going to go due north like that. And then GFS has it making landfall, Grace making landfall in Yucatan Peninsula, not Yucatan, for Bay of Campeche waters at 973 millibars on the coast there at the Bay of Campeche there for south central, or I guess just overall the eastern coast there of Mexico basically. So very interesting. Actually, the GFS wants to have this got very close. Wants to have, I guess, Henri get extremely close to New England, which I actually really doubt. I think that could very well be because its strength there, 986 millibars. I think it's going to get really close to Cape Cod and all of that. Take a look at the CMC, though. CMC as well is being fairly consistent within what the GFS is showing. Obviously, the strengthening trend. However, CMC is really, really behind on Grace. And, I mean, CMC is really behind on both storms. It has basically, obviously, Henri at 1,012, and then it only has Grace at 1,008 millibars. So I think 18Z CMC is gonna, or sorry, 0Z CMC is gonna really have to catch up with us actually, because obviously we don't have 18Z for CMC. But it gets, I mean, it does not get this to actually the current millibar pressure till the Bay of Campeche. So obviously CMC is really far behind, and they still have 982 millibars. So I think CMC is gonna really have this fairly strong as well, like the GFS. Let's now go look at the actual shear. So they're going to be seeing that kind of strong ridge right here. The high pressure up here. We have a small trough down here, the tut. And actually another tut right down here. So it's going to see that big, nice, the nice dip in the jet stream there. And then we have very little shear. I mean, we still have some shear very close to Grace, but we kind of have that upper level anticyclone kind of really keeping it, preventing it from actually get to the actual low pressure. So that shear will kind of stick just to the east. And there you see that really strong ridge kind of really dipping in. That's going to allow the push obviously Henri to the west. And then as this strong high pressure kind of brings in those winds, kind of stretching it like that, it's going to go due north here. And actually this ridge is going to get very, very close. However, it looks like Henri will develop upper level anticyclone, and it's going to keep it intact with the mid-level and upper levels kind of clockwise divergent kind of clockwise flow, as well as same thing as well with not Fred, sorry, with Grace, another upper level anticyclone keeping it safe. Fred should not be an issue for either of these storms. You really see some really strong moisture bubbles within these storms, so it should not be an issue whatsoever.